Hello, and thanks for continuing with me for part 2 of the Mayor's Push for Diversity. What's next? I'm Trayce Gardner, founder-director of Brooklyn Young Filmmakers, and this is the Lonely Woman Podcast. Let me begin by saying how truly thrilled I am that our mayor has taken on cultural diversity as a signature issue. I'm hearing the terms cultural diversity, income inequality so often now, sometimes I think I'm back in Berkeley. But in fact, I'm just waking up with New York One News. So I had heard a lot already about the city's efforts to, improve the representation of people of color and women in the police and fire departments. But it wasn't until Brooklyn Young Filmmakers got an invitation to a seminar that was put on by the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs on how to improve diversity in cultural organizations. It wasn't until that I realized, hey, this is probably the mayor's mandate to every city department. That's pretty awesome. That's pretty exciting. Now, at this DCA seminar, moderated by the DCA commissioner, there were 2 panels. One panel on sharing strategies and experiences about how to better diversify staff. And a big part of that thought was get more diverse interns, because often if you've interned someplace and they get to know you and you get to know them, when an entry-level position becomes open, they will ask the intern. Now, usually internships are unpaid. They talked about how that could be part of the issue because if you come from a modest income community, family, you can't afford to do it. And then also you might just never have heard of these kinds of internships. So there was talk about, how to find pay for interns, how to, better advertise in high schools and other places. And then the other part of the discussion was about how do you diversify boards on mostly white cultural organizations. And a big part of this was how do you increase the pool of qualified candidates. So all of this was good. But in my head, I kept asking, aren't they going to talk about... There were at least 3 other roads I wanted the discussion to travel. I wanted them to ask, does anyone have any new ideas? Are there new ways to awaken, train, and link our communities? Not only the kids, not just the stray individuals. Come on, let's create a complete picture. This is why our communities are so weakened. The adults have forgotten their own worth. Let's build new models based on how communities actually operate. This can't be done from the level of commissioner. This can only be done from within the communities. The panel was mostly white, as was the audience. While there was diversity at the seminar, I just kept thinking, hey, if we organized this, we'd have a broader agenda. But finally, there was a closing Q&A, and I jumped up and down enough that I got called on. I asked, can you name a program or an initiative that's being developed that's about going in and educating in modest income communities, not just programming for their promising teens and young adults, but actually raising the knowledge level and accessibility within a community itself to information about the cultural sector. And when I spoke about this, there was some applause, so it kind of reassured me that either others have the same thought or they appreciate that I'm bringing it up. I looked to the panel for their responses. But amazingly, there was no response. It was just a blank from them. Not a high note to end the seminar on. A seminar about new strategies to improve diversity. Well, I'm ending this podcast with 3 things. A mantra, a request, and a shout out to the person I most want to talk to. First, the mantra. Listen so you can repeat. Let's teach our adults how to teach our children. Got it? Let's repeat. Let's teach our adults how to teach our children. Number 2, the request. And it's to you. Please make a comment. After you listen to this podcast, or after you view one of our videos, or you read a blog post, ask a question or add your own knowledge. and contribute to the online dialogue. And after you comment, then share it with your community and networks. You can help make our project important. And lastly, the person I most want to talk to? The mayor would be great, but I really want to talk to Tony Danza. I want to have a dialogue with Tony Danza about the People's Hollywood Studio. Him and me over a beer, a good beer. I've wanted to talk to Tony Danza since I saw him at the Q&A following a 2013 Manhattan screening of the very funny and thought-provoking film Don John. First, he made me smile. Tony Danza walks to the stage, looking trim in his tailored suit, turns towards the audience, and flashes his Brooklyn t-shirt and a big smile. I didn't know much about Tony Danza. There was Who's the Boss and Taxi. I knew of them, but they weren't my shows. But that night, when Tony Danza spoke, I developed a lonely woman crush. The guy was so intelligent, so thoughtful. He spent a year teaching in a Philly high school and then wrote a book about it. He was so cool. I flew out the door to read his book, and after that, I knew. I just knew. Tony Danza will love the People's Hollywood Studio, and he'll help us get other people in the industry to support it. How do I know? With love, you just know. So if you know somebody who knows someone who works for Tony Danza, please tell him. I want to meet him.
The most romantic song ever was The Way We Were. I think the one that Elton John wrote for that guy on Who's the Boss. What song is that, Phoebes? Hold me close, young Tony Danza.